Welcome back to another FPL video. This will be the best wildcard team for Game Week 10. If you haven't used the wildcard already, I assume a lot of you will be looking to use it this week with so many fixture swings happening for teams like West Ham, Arsenal and Brighton. And if you're going to ask about certain players not featuring, what I would encourage you to do is watch most of the video, because there are 3 different teams which will have some different key assets in there. So if you're going to be like, oh, where's the Spurs player or where is this player? Watch until the end of the video, and if your player still hasn't featured, then you can leave it down in the comment section below and we can discuss why they haven't really featured in any of my squads here. Players like Cole Palmer, for example, will not feature. If you want to go for a 5 million or below midfielder, then Palmer is a fine option. But with those fixtures and with the way I want to structure the midfield and the whole squad, that's why players like Cole Palmer won't feature. That doesn't mean he isn't a good option for his price and below, as I discussed in recent transfer tips videos as well. If you end up enjoying this video, smash the like button and subscribe for new. Our aim is to get this video to the 200 likes, and we're also very close to 21,000 subscribers. By the time this video has been published, we probably would have reached that goal, so thank you very much to those that support the channel. But without further ado, let's jump straight into this video. My stance on the goalkeepers haven't changed much. There are 5 goalkeepers that I think are worth considering on the wild card. They include the 2 on screen, Turner and Areola, as 2 cheap enablers. I think Areola is a standout, and he can be your second goalkeeper or your first. It doesn't really matter, but he offers tremendous value at that price. West Ham might not keep many clean sheets, but with the fixtures coming up, they should keep some more than they did in the first 9 game weeks of the season. And Areola can save penalties, he can get bonus points and make a lot of saves in general. Turner is just a fine option at 4.1 million, but nothing more. You're not going to expect too many returns there. And we keep on talking about Vlaco Dimos. It hasn't happened yet, but that could be something else to think about in the future as well. The other 3 goalkeepers that I would highly recommend are Johnston from Crystal Palace, Leno from Fulham, and of course David Raya from Arsenal, assuming he keeps his spot after a set of shaky performances for the Gunners. But those are my 5 favourite goalkeepers in terms of price. You can always go to Edison or Alisson, but as you saw in Game Week 9, Ortega started there for Manchester City, and that could be a problem going forward. But beyond that, Edison doesn't make many saves, doesn't get many bonus points, and you're really relying on the clean sheets there. As for Alisson, he's fine, but you'd rather cover Liverpool defensively with Trent Alexander-Arnold, or more importantly at this moment in time, Tsimikas. So I would go for these 2 goalkeepers with this wildcard draft. Of course, I'm going to discuss some other goalkeepers in the other teams, and in the comment section let me know which 3 of these squads is your favourite. But let's now move on to the defenders. Aston Villa have been on fire, but defensively they leave a bit to be desired, even in home matches where they've won 11 games in a row there at Villa Park. Matty Cash is a solid defensive option. I prefer him over Pau Torres, Luca Dean, and all the other options Aston Villa have in the defence, including Emi Martinez in goal. And Matty Cash is playing in a very advanced position, but overall, he has been a bit disappointing in FPL in the last couple of weeks. There's no denying that, and that could be an issue going forwards as well. But against Luton Town coming up next, and good fixtures up until Game Week 15, which is when the fixtures really turn for Aston Villa, and that's where you'd want to sell these assets. I think Matty Cash is good for the time being, and he should get some points, whether it's attacking returns or clean sheets, maybe a hybrid of both over the next couple of weeks as well. If we go to the other defenders, though, it's not going to be kind of set in stone. There's quite a lot of different defenders you can go to, but at this moment in time, you have to take advantage of Konstantinos Tsimikas for Liverpool, a 4.5 million defender. He went up in price the other day, and he was subbed out at the 60-minute mark. So those that had him for Game Week 9, of course, a good shout. It's always a good purchase to get Tsimikas in, but also an element of fortune, because if he was subbed out seconds before, that would have been a 1-pointer. A bit similar to the Udogie situation that we saw against Fulham as well on Monday night. But Tsimikas is a good option. He didn't have a particularly good game against Everton, but he should start the vast majority, if not all games, with Robertson being absent. As I mentioned, though, in the deadline stream, it would not surprise me if Endo or Joe Gomez got the occasional start at left back, so that's something else you have to weigh up and monitor. But with the squad depth we have in this team and in the defensive line, that shouldn't be too much of a cause for concern. If we go to the other defenders, though, I mean, how can we not go with this player? Kieran Trippier, the best defender in the game, and he just constantly delivers. Ever since that game against Sheffield United, he has been on absolute fire and the best FPL asset in that time frame. And you don't have to go for him, to be honest, in terms of is he essential or not. I don't think so, but is he one of the best assets in the game? There's no doubt about it right now. And what you can do to cover him, as I'll show you with other drafts, is going for 2 Newcastle defenders. So in this case, Dan Burn maybe, and maybe Lascelles for a short-term punt, and if not, for a bit of a longer-term play, you can go for Fabian Schär instead, but that will cost you 1.2 million more. But the second kind of Newcastle defender we're going to go for here is Dan Burn, and I think he's probably the best asset pound for pound for Newcastle at that price point. But now it leaves us with one defender slot to fill up. You can go for a 3.9 million defender like Taylor or even Lascelles, who's the best 3.9 million defender at this moment in time. But I'm going to cover a defender who's very solid, very dependable. He's got a bit of goal threat historically. He might not have shown it so far this season, but it is Gabriel with some top fixtures coming up like Sheffield United and Burnley over the next 3. And this would be my favourite defensive 5. If Estupiñán was available for Gameweek 10, you could consider him instead of Gabriel, for example, or even Dan Burn, and diversifying the defence a little bit. But I'm very happy with this defensive 5, and as good as Estupiñán is going forwards, Brighton leave a lot to be desired defensively, and I think these teams, so maybe not Aston Villa, but Liverpool, Newcastle and Arsenal have better defences than Brighton, and I would definitely target these defences and players at this moment in time. The first name of the team sheet in this wildcard is Salah. I think he has to feature in any wildcard you're building right now, and if you don't have him, what are you waiting for at this moment in time? Even before Game Week 5, when Salah wasn't seen as essential, we kept talking about this period of Game Week 9 onwards, where Salah has fantastic fixtures. He's the best captaincy option on paper, and it's just going to be very difficult to navigate this period without him. And of course, some of you that don't have Haaland, for example, you might be thinking of selling Salah to get Haaland in Game Week 11, and that's still a possibility, but I'm still not too sure if that's the play in the long term, and ideally you would have both really in the long run. But Salah is a fantastic option. We don't need to discuss him too much. On paper, he's the best captaincy option in Game Week 10. It wouldn't surprise me if he was a bit disappointing in this game week after a set of top performances in the last couple of weeks, but Salah's so consistent, and if it wasn't for that disallowed goal against Tottenham, I think Salah would have returned in every single game so far this season. So his consistency has been unmatched by any player, even Haaland, Trippier, etc. so far this season. Let's see how it all turns out, but over the next couple of weeks, I think Salah is the best FPL option for sure. Then we go to the other midfielders, and this is where things get very, very interesting. You can't cover absolutely everybody, but this is one player that I think you really want to have from Game Week 10 onwards, and that's Bukayo Saka, another very consistent midfielder. And as I've said all season, Salah and Saka for me will be the highest scoring midfielders in the game. You've got Son currently above Saka in the rankings. I think that could change, especially over the next couple of weeks. And ideally you would have both, but if you had to pick one, it would be Saka, despite Son's 14-pointer against Fulham. And we always kind of anticipated this of Son doing really well in Game Week 9, and then it makes the switch in Game Week 10 from Son to Saka very difficult. And to be honest, if you have Son, the only midfielders I would sell him to are Bukayo Saka and Salah. Check out my transfer tips video, I'll discuss this in more detail as well. The third midfielder is another one who's offering really good value for money right now. He scored in Game Week 9 despite his team losing quite comprehensively, and that's Jarrod Bowen. And you do have James Ward-Prowse. Kudus could be a good option in the future, but I think Jarrod Bowen is a cut above, and I wish I had him and the funds to get him in my wildcard in Game Week 8, and he might be someone I'm still going to go to in the coming weeks as well. There's also this debate about Bowen, and he might become an even better FPL asset if he plays down the middle, but I don't think necessarily that makes a big difference. He can do an extremely good job from the right-hand side, so if he does play up front, that could be a bonus, but I don't really see it as a huge advantage. It could be like the Rashford situation where he's actually better on the left-hand side compared to being the lone striker for Man United in that situation. With Jarrod Bowen, it might be different, but I just don't see it as immediately a huge advantage. Either way, though, Jarrod Bowen is a fantastic option from Game Week 10 onwards. The fixtures are fantastic for West Ham, and I would definitely recommend having one or two West Ham players. In this case, we have Areola and Bowen. I think that is probably the best set of players you can go for. If you were to go for a third, you could maybe consider James Ward-Prowse. I would go nowhere near Antonio, and Kudus is definitely one to keep an eye on. He has a lot of talent, and if he could get a consistent run of starts, he could do a terrific job there for West Ham. The fourth midfielder is a bit of a difficult one. He blanked in Game Week 9. He had an assist taken away from him, and that is Mitoma. He has some fantastic fixtures over the next 6, and Brighton are right up there in the fixture difficulty rating. Mitoma has been a bit hot and cold this season, and there could be rotation with the Europa League, but if you are looking for a midfielder around 6.5 million and below, Mitoma is one of the best options, and he is the best way of covering Brighton at this moment in time. The second option will be Estupinian once he returns from injury. I'm not a big fan of Ferguson and all these other assets because of rotation. Joao Pedro is also another one. Solly March is currently injured. That could be quite a lengthy spell out on the sidelines. Hopefully he returns soon. But the fifth midfielder that I'm going to go for here is Anthony Gordon. I was so close to selling Ward-Prowse to Gordon in Game Week 9, and that would have been a boost of 6 points. Unfortunately, I didn't go for it, and I decided to roll and have 2 free transfers in Game Week 10. So check out the team selection video coming up in a few days' time to see what I end up doing. But Gordon is, for me, the best midfielder at 5.6 million and below, and I still prefer him over Hwang Hee-chan and Neto, who are a bit more expensive as well. But Gordon, for me, is the best way of covering Newcastle offensively, even over Isak and Callum Wilson, who will constantly have these rotation headaches. And unless one of them is injured, I don't think it's really worth going there. And Anthony Gordon should start the vast majority of games with Harvey Barnes out for several months. The first forward I'm going to go for here is Cameron Archer, but he's just going to sit on your bench, and he is the easiest one, really. You look at this 50-man squad entirely, he's going to be second or third on your bench pretty much every single week, and to be honest, I'd be very surprised if he somehow managed to find a way into your starting 11 or even first on your bench. He's just an enabler. Don't really think about him too much. If you need the extra 0.1 or 0.2 million, just go for Mabama or Muniz there from West Ham or Fulham, and that could do the job for you as well. The two strikers we're really interested in are very simple ones. Ollie Watkins is almost a must-have over the next couple of weeks, and since Emery has taken over, only Salah and Haaland have more goal contributions in the Premier League, and in 2023, I believe only Salah is the one with more goals scored. So Ollie Watkins has been on fire. He scored finally whilst in my team in Game Week 9 with an 11-pointer. And I said this from last season, Unai Emery has a way of getting the best out of strikers, whether it's Aubameyang, Lacazette, Cavani, Baka, you name it. Ollie Watkins is the next beneficiary of that development of strikers. And the final forward is going to be Erling Haaland. I keep seeing people say, should I sell him? Should I hold? I think you should still hold him if you have him. And unless it's a situation where you have to sell Haaland to get Salah, I don't think it's really worth it, even for Kieran Trippier in the defence or Heung-min Son in the midfield, Bukayo Saka. And you look at this squad and you're probably thinking, where is the white? Where is the Spurs? They're top of the league right now. They've got Heung-min Son, Maddison. They've got Pedro Porro at the back. Some really good options across the pitch. But this is one draft. I have to make that very clear. We're going to head over to FPL.team, talk about the starting 11 for this particular draft, and then showing you 2 other drafts where the likes of Son and Maddison will feature. And in the comment section down below, let me know which 3 of these teams are your favourite and which team would you be most likely to wildcard to in Game Week 10, or maybe in a few weeks' time as well, because I think this team could be fantastic, not just to wildcard now, but also in future game weeks. Of course, things always change with injuries, form, and more fixture swings, but I would be very happy with this 50-man squad. It's very similar to my Game Week 8 wildcard. There are 3 or 4 key differences, I would say, but generally speaking, I'm very happy with it. Using FPL.team, I've just made one change from the draft I talked about throughout most of the video, because that is really aimed for people with high budget. If you need to find some ways of finding the money, then you could downgrade Dan Burn to Lascelles as a short-term punt, and you can also make a few changes here and there, even Gordon to Cole Palmer if you wish. You can also go from Matoma to Pedro Neto. So there's plenty of things you can do to afford this team, really. But overall, most of you should be able to, build something similar to this. And I've gone for Areola in goal, a back 3 of Trippier, Gabriel, Cash, a midfield 5 of Salah, Matoma, Gordon, Bowen and Saka, and a front 2 of Haaland and Watkins. The bench is also very solid, even if you go for Lascelles over Dan Burn, and you could see plenty of bench points there from Tsimikas and Lascelles/Dan Burn. So if you have enough money, go for Dan Burn over Lascelles, of course, but if you don't, then go for the Englishman right now as a short-term punt, and you could even start him in game weeks such as Game Week 10. But overall, I'm very happy with this squad. Even FPL.team puts a 68.4 rating. It's got the highest expected points in Game Week 10 of any of the 3 drafts I'm going to show you. But let's now move on to the second draft. Of course, you could also discuss the captaincy. For me, my favourite options would be Salah, probably Watkins second and Saka third. That's something else you could think about. So maybe the vice captaincy could change all of these drafts. But overall, I'm very happy with this squad. And in terms of the algorithm, it does favour Salah as the best Game Week 10 captain. The second draft is identical. There are 2 key changes though, and that's no Kieran Trippier. I've downgraded him to Dan Burn, and you've also got Lascelles there as a short-term punt, and you've also got Maddison in for Gordon. So we've kind of trimmed down on the Newcastle assets. You remove Kieran Trippier and also Anthony Gordon, but you still have Lascelles and Dan Burn, and you've got James Maddison as your Spurs coverage. So let me know which one you prefer. In terms of expected points, this has gone down to 66.9. The third draft I'm going to show you very shortly, that will have the most key changes, and that will be quite different to the first two teams you've seen here so far. But of course, you can't just limit yourself to these options. Like I mentioned before, you've got Cole Palmer, Pedro Neto, and a few other options you can go to here and there. Estupiñán, when he returns from injury, can come in. You can also go for a different goalkeeper entirely, like Bernd Leno or David Raya. So there are definitely some things you can change based on your personal preferences and how you want to redistribute the funds. But I'm very happy with the squad as well. I do prefer the first one though, despite no Spurs coverage there. I'd rather have Kieran Trippier over Maddison and then Gordon over Dan Burn potentially. So there's a few things you can weigh up there in your squad, but this is still another solid draft, and it also allows you to cover Spurs offensively. The third and final team discussed today has Areola in goal, Johnston as the backup for now, and you can bring him into the starting 11 in future weeks. A back three of Trippier, Gabriel and Cash. A midfield five of Salah, Son, Maddison, Bowen and Saka. That's the best midfield five out of all of these teams, but there's no Erling Haaland. Instead, it's Alvarez and Ollie Watkins up front. 1 million in the bank, so this is the easiest team to afford out of the three. And you've got a bench of Johnston, Tsimikas, Dan Burn, and Cameron Archer. So it's a very solid squad. It does have the least expected points though, with no Erling Haaland, 64.1, but it's still a very solid team, you have to say, and you can go without Haaland. As I've said for weeks now, I just decided to keep him because I think it is better to have him in the long run, but I can understand why some of you on the wildcard in Game Week 8 or 9 decided to go without Haaland, and some of you in Game Week 10 are thinking of the exact same situation. In Game Weeks like 11, you might be hiding behind the sofa when Man City play Bournemouth at home, and from Game Week 16 onwards, I definitely think Haaland is essential from that point onwards. So things will definitely change. But for the next 5 to 6 game weeks, I would argue that Erling Haaland isn't absolutely essential as he has been for the past year in FPL. But let me know your thoughts on the best team and which team or players would you be most comfortable to go without. So in the first team, there's no Spurs. In the second team, there's no Kieran Trippier. And in this squad on screen, the third one, there is no Erling Haaland. Which one of those players would you be most happy to go without? It's not an easy one. It's about prioritizing. You're going to lose out on points and have maybe some red arrows along the way and have your rank decimated by the likes of Haaland. But in the end, you have to prioritize. You can't cover absolutely everybody, and you have to make your feelings clear. Go for your personal preferences and build your favorite team. So I think these three squads would be fantastic for the Game Week 10 wildcard, and you should get plenty of green arrows in general, even if there will be some bumps along the way. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it or found it useful, then be sure to smash the like button and subscribe for new. Let's try to get this video to over 200 likes, and let's keep on pushing towards new goals such as 22,000 subscribers and beyond. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and check all the links in the description below for the Patreon and channel memberships, the Discord server, and the FPL League. So I'd highly encourage you to check all of those links out. I wish you all the best of luck for Game Week 10 and the rest of the season, and I'll see you next time.